Welcome to the CEO Pulse podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. Today, we have Jamil Damji. This guy is a beast when it comes to entrepreneurship. His background is amazing. It's one of the most peculiar, is that how you say it?
Peculiar?
Peculiar, yeah.
I call it peculiar.
So it's one of the most, that word, backwards that I've ever seen in somebody, and actually what he's done so far with his company is amazing too. So yeah, thank you so much for being here, bro. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the biggest highlights, or one of the big highlights, whenever people start talking to you in terms of business is you close 100 deals on a regular, a month.
Almost.
Yeah,
average,
not
right?
Quite there, give or take 80 to 100.
I'd say we're probably closer to like 75, 85 a month.
Cool.
Yeah.
So just to put that in retrospect, and that's in real estate. Your business it's a real estate investment wholesale business.
Correct.
But to put that in retrospect would be, I mean, the same as I don't even know how to compare it, man. Most businesses do an average of, like, somebody who's going and pumping and doing very active stuff is maybe 10, 12 a month.
Correct.
And you just blew that out of the water.
We did.
The point I'm trying to make is that you have a very, very efficient company. You have a very efficient way of doing things. And your background is completely opposite to what, somebody would normally think of.
Sure. Yeah.
Tell us about that, please.
So, which part? My background,
Bro,
or
start from the beginning, man.
So, obviously, I've had some great success with Keyglee. That's our wholesale company where we do the tremendous volume of transactions. I gotta, very early on, make sure I give credit to where it's due in that case. So I've got two amazing business partners, Josiah Grimes and Hunter Runyon, and they were instrumental in allowing the company to really scale to the level it's gotten to. For me, I brought to the company some very key strengths. I call that just really being able to hone in relationships. I came to the table with deals already in hand, and an ability to always go out there and hustle up more, right? It's just something that I've had a knack in being able to do, and what they provided was the infrastructure and the capacity to be able to move those deals. And so our company was born from putting together pieces that, typically when you're building a wholesale company, and I think the reason why a lot of companies stay stagnant at that 10 to 15 deal a month, on the high, right? Is because they tend to have individuals in the company who are all the same. Right? Mm-hmm. And so two great act guys get together and they form a wholesale company, and then they don't realize that they're missing, infrastructure and dispositions. And so the thing that I've seen happen over and over and over again is just, birds of a feather flock together, right? So I tend to hang out with more people like me, right? You can see I'm, touring around the country with Pace. Pace and I are very similar personality styles in that, we both are outgoing, gregarious, and magnetic, right? We're able to attract deals and circumstances and situations to us that, most people can't really do. But put him and I in a room together, and if we formed a wholesale company together, it would still have a ceiling, because we can't grow without all of those extra components and parts. The reason Pace is, in the last 12 months, his business has exploded the way it has is because he's got Cody, who is an integrator there, helping him make sure that he's able to handle all of the other parts of the business and keep it all moving. And so a part of the success I think that we've had at Keyglee was just the amazing people that came together to make it. Now, of course, my background, when I got involved in real estate, it's always been by accident, right? I never came into real estate like, hey, I want to build a real estate company. It happened to me in more of a way of like, where I'm just getting hit over the head with, look, here's an opportunity, and they were always real estate related, and wholesaling specifically has been calling me to it without me really knowing why until now, right? And so, I stumbled into my first deal. I didn't get out there trying to learn wholesaling. I did it by accident. I put the pieces together myself. This is, 2002. This is before Cody Sperber, before, any of the Shantaries
before it became sexy.
Yeah, before it was even a thing, right? It wasn't even called wholesaling at that point. The term that my attorney used was a skip trace. Or no, not a skip trace, a skip transfer. Just kidding. Yeah, skip transfer is what they call it in Canada. That's where I did my first wholesale deal, right? So I did a skip transfer, which is how I did my first deal. I made 50 grand on that deal, and I was literally just trying to put dots together and connect them. It wasn't because I was learning a new business model.
So now I'm curious. I mean, it sounds like you didn't have something to look at as far as a model, right? So how did the whole thing come about? How did you figure out you could do that type of transaction and take on that type of opportunity?
Really oddly. So I was, at the time, I was in a company. I was a partner in a company where we would sell websites. This is 2002. And so I ran a call center for that company. And what we would do is we would get the Yellow Pages and we would call every business in the Yellow Pages and ask them if they wanted a website for their company. They'd be like, what's a website? Like, I don't like spiders. It was like real, I'm talking like internet was baby internet, right?
Yeah.
Like, there was really nothing there. And, we were trying to convince business owners that, the new wave of the future is online, and, people look for businesses to do business, online, and so they need a website. And ultimately, that company failed because it used to cost us $700 to make a website that we were selling for $600 because we just didn't have any idea what we were doing, right? But in that space, I met my business partner in that time, and him and his dad were building duplexes in Calgary. And what they were doing is they were taking old homes that were on lots that were 50 by 130 feet, demolishing the property, subdividing the lot, and then building a duplex on it. And they were making around $160,000 each project. And I overheard them having a conversation to that regard, and immediately my attention was piqued, and I asked, how do I get involved? And they very quickly dismissed me and said I had no business in that conversation. But I overheard his father complaining that they couldn't find these lots. If they could find more lots, they could do more projects and make more money, and their limiting factor was these building lots. The inventory for the lots, right? And so the question I then asked was, okay, not how do I get involved in building these houses, is how do I help your dad find these lots, right? And so, I went home that day, and the next morning I was walking my dog, and I was living in a neighborhood where these developments were happening. And I'm walking down the street, and a house that I had actually tried to rent, but it was a little bit out of my budget, and they weren't willing to negotiate on the rent, was still for rent when I was walking my dog that day. And it happened to be one of those properties that my business partner's dad's looking for.
He was looking at?
Yeah, and it had been for rent for like 3 months, right? She hadn't been able to rent it yet. And so I saw the sign on the lawn, it was still there, and I called. And I just asked her, okay, so I understand you're trying to rent this property, you've been trying to rent it for some time now, but would you be open to selling this house? And her response was, if the price is right. And I asked, what would that be? And she said, $350,000. And I quickly wrapped up that call, and I went to my business partner and asked him, how much would your father pay for one of these lots? And he said, 400 grand, right? All day. And so now I have a $50,000 problem, right? How do I connect these dots? I have no money to buy the lot. I can't buy it to then sell it. Like I'm just trying to figure out how to connect these dots. And in Canada, we convey real estate through attorneys. And so I just went to the Yellow Pages and I looked up real estate attorneys and I called them all down, as I was used to already doing to sell websites.
Cold call.
And and so I call down the list, and a lot of the attorneys' secretaries were just dismissing me and not helping me at all. But one newer attorney who answered the call and was just happy to talk to me. His name was David Steed. He essentially told me what to do. He said, I'm going to email you a contract and you're going to print 2 of them. And on one of them, you're going to be the buyer on this contract, and make sure you write this and or assignee after your name. And on the second contract, you're going to be the seller, and you're going to put whoever you're selling it to as the buyer on that contract, and you're going to bring both those contracts to me. And I'm like, okay, then what happens? He said, well, if it completes, you get a check. I'm like, that's all I got to do. And he's like, yeah, well, the rest of it is done through me. And that's what I did. I literally just followed his instructions were so simple. It didn't have to get complicated. It was like really just as simple as that. I took those 2 contracts to his office, and about a week and a half later, I think it was like just a little over $47,000 after his fee was taken out, and I'm like, that's it. This is what I'm going to do forever and ever.
$50,000 call right there.
Yeah, and I didn't even know this was a thing, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't popular. It wasn't like people were, like today. It's all the rage, right? Because people can see that there's an opportunity to change their life in doing a transaction like this. But I didn't have a guide. I just had a gut feeling, and
well, that, and then you stuck with the idea of solving the problem for that guy for long enough.
Sure,
if you hadn't been thinking about that while you were walking your dog, and like so many other ideas that come and go, you would have dropped it the day before. I mean, that's a life-changing,
For sure.
Thing that you did right there, just holding on to that idea for long enough for it to, become something else. It was haunting me, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like I could have let it go, because I'm just in my mind just thinking, okay, how do I get involved? And one thing led to the next, and that's where I was. I'm kind of following. I'm trying to track the thought process here, and it's you went from finding out what the problem was,
correct,
or what a problem was, for this particular person, right? And then you kept it for long enough, and then you started thinking how, and then when you figured out what the how was, you started looking for the who.
Yep.
So I mean, it's almost like textbook, bro. I mean, you went through the problem solving, process right there that most people with a challenge or a situation from them don't often. I mean, they drop the ball at one of those stages.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It totally does, and I think that one of my talents that I've just been naturally gifted with is the capacity to see that. Mm-hmm. All my life, that's the way I've thought. I would reverse engineer things. It was just the way that I'm like, okay, well, this is the result. And here I have this piece, but I'm missing that. And then I would just kind of work backwards from it, and I'd always be able to solve the problem with fairly simple procedures, right? I mean, calling for rent by owners, we still do it. Like it's because it works, right? It's one of those things that if I get hit up online and someone asks, what can I do today? I have no money, and I'm just starting, and I want to try and do a deal. I'll always send them to For Rent by Owners, because I can say, look, go to Zillow, and there's a free list there. Just look for phone numbers that don't look like they're realtors or property management companies. Like, you just want to find the dude Doug, or Ben, or whoever it is that's like self-managing his property. Call them, talk to those people, and you'll eventually get luck.
You'll hit something.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy, and it's so you have. I mean, you're coming from a school of solving problems,
correct,
and you have this very particular way of doing it, which I'm going to call hustling with skill, because it's essentially what I'm seeing, and you've capitalized on that one skill that you recognize within yourself. Now, aside from that, also your background, I mean, you were in comedy at one point,
but even prior to that, I mean, my degree in university was physiology, man. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not supposed to be in real estate. I'm supposed to be a doctor. I'm an Indian guy. Like that's where my parents had my life set out to go. Mm-hmm. And for me, and I was like a Dean's List student all through my undergrad. and I wrote the MCAT. I just came to the conclusion after I studied and wrote the MCAT that what am I doing here? Like, I don't want to do this. I have no interest in being a doctor. I think people who are doctors, they have to be a specific type of person. Like you really want to be in there to like solve health issues. I wanted to be a plastic surgeon. Like, that's it. The most superficial, terrible thing that you can do in medicine was what I wanted to do, right?
Was it money driven?
100% money. Yeah, money and boobs. Like that
money
was
and
like,
boobs.
yeah, like yay, you know.
Want to make pretty boobs.
Yeah, right. And realizing very early on that, like, first of all, in a graduating class of new med students, the number of them that get an opportunity to even be plastic surgeons is like, it's like a needle in a haystack. It's like one out of like 10,000 people get the opportunity to be a plastic surgeon. Like there's just not very many specialty positions open, right? And so what ends up happening to these young students who are wanting to become doctors is they end up applying for like everything. And like it's even competitive to become a proctologist, right? Like where you're just looking at buttholes all day long. Like
that's not as sexy as boobs.
No, it's not, right? But that's like, even that is like a very, very difficult specialty to get into. And so the majority, 90% of doctors end up becoming general practitioners. And, you know, 90% of what a general practitioner does is like dealing with people with the sniffles and like infections and things growing on them. And like, I couldn't see myself having a happy life in that situation.
It makes sense, you know, looking at it from that light. So you have this stable, you know, future that you're working towards.
Yes.
You know, at this point, and then you come to realize that that's not what you want to do. How does the next step look like? I mean, what made you take a leap, and then kind of, because it sounds like you went from that to just completely something different.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I kind of had one of those moments where my parents would say I lost my mind, right? Like I was completely rebelling against everything they wanted and like what they were hoping for me. And, you know, that was like my time to be like, no, I'm not doing anything you guys say. I hate everything. And I'm just going to try my own stuff and stop it, you know? And that's really what I did. I was trying to get as far away from that world as possible. And it was tough because, like, you got to understand, I'm like very close to my family, and I still am, right? And for them, that was like, what do you mean you don't want to become a doctor? Oh my God. Like, we spent all this money in your undergrad because I have my degree's in physiology, right? I'm in real estate now. There's zero correlation,
There's no correlation,
right? Nothing is transferring over, right? So, and I didn't grow up in a house where we had the money to be wasting on an undergrad that had no use, right? And so I was really breaking hearts in that situation. I was breaking my parents' heart. I was breaking my heart watching them, you know, feel as bad as they were. But I just knew it wasn't for me. And so I you know, went into this situation. You know, the girl I was dating at the time, she had told me about this company where they were having a massive problem with sales. It was an already established media company. They were in the business of trying to sell websites. They just couldn't do it. They were like terrible. They could build the websites, but they had zero ability to sell it, like nothing. And, you know, she had explained to them, well, you know, my boyfriend, he's a really good salesperson, I think, and he'd do really well here. Do you want to talk to him? And so I went, and at first they hired me as like a sales guy, and then quickly took their sales from like non-existent to like nothing they'd ever seen before. And so I leveraged that success for them to give me half of the company. And I was just like, you guys are going bankrupt, or you're giving me half? Like, what is it? You know? And they did. They gave me half. Now, that was awesome on paper, but when you're losing $100 a website every time, you know, I didn't know how much things cost to make because that wasn't my side of the company, right? I was there to make sales. I was there to train people to make sales. it was the other people there who were supposed to figure out how to be able to, fulfill and create these websites we were selling, and less than what we were selling them for. But that's another story, right? So it
was
just
as important though. But.
Yeah, it was just where I was, and kind of. But again, being in that spot is what led me to solving the problem for my business partner at the time, which led me to this whole life.
So you mentioned something. Feeling heartbroken whenever you were transitioning into this whole new thing that you didn't know what it was going to be, or what it was going to turn into. So would you say, we're either moving, every time we make a decision, we're moving away from pain or towards pleasure?
I think that's...
Which one, what do you think kind of, pulled you the strongest? Was it, just moving away from the pain of living on a lifestyle that you just were going to totally hate? Or were you thinking about the possibilities of that, of what a new outlook could be?
I think that, that the lines are going to blur here a lot, right? It was going to be painful for me to have to tell my family. That was the worst pain that I could think of, was disappointing mom and dad, right? I come from an immigrant house where their expectations, their viewpoint of me, I love my family so much. And, I do today. My family is everything, right? And so disappointing my mom and dad was always the thing that I just never wanted to do. I was always more worried about what my parents would think about something than anything else, even me, right? And so I think I was moving towards pain and making myself uncomfortable because I was doing the hard thing, which was being honest with my family about what I wanted to do in life, right? And so I was moving to pain in the hopes, or with the feeling that I was averting future pain, because I was going to stop myself from making a grave decision for the rest of my life. I had no business being a doctor, dude. I would have been the doctor that would have lost his license. No joke. Legit, because I would have just been so disillusioned with the practice that I would have been like, well, all right, what can I do now? What can I? I'll figure something out that's probably not legal, and it would have just turned, went sideways for me. So, I think I was moving towards pain in hopes that I was saving myself pain in the future. That's where I think I was.
And so, your background also includes, you have a history in comedy.
Yeah, that happened after the crash.
After the crash.
So
how do you go from school to running this company, or actually owning half of this company, and then into comedy, and then into real estate? How does that?
The timeline's there a little off. So okay. I'm in school. I'm doing this. I'm working in this company now. That company very quickly. Once I started making money in real estate, I realized, and I left the whole website making business, right? Because it wasn't making any money. We just folded it and moved on. So that was just kind of a short period of time, which led me into real estate. So I was doing real estate for let's say 2002 till about 2007, end of 2007, beginning of 2008. And that's when the crash happened. And I had amassed quite a bit of money in that time. So I was selling building lots to builders, and then I moved into apartment buildings. So I started flipping apartment buildings to developers. I'd find old apartment buildings, and that they would convert into condos.
Okay.
So again, just my mind was always set to find the projects, right? And I graduated from building lots, single family homes, to buildings because I could make $100,000 every time I'd flip one of those. And I did that for quite a while until I decided with my sister that we were leaving too much money on the table, and what we need to be doing instead of just flipping these buildings to these developers was develop them ourselves. And that's when I took my hat off of the things I knew and things that were in my core business and things that were a part of my personality and things I could control, into something completely different from what I understood. And we bought 4 buildings. We were converting them all. I had my parents co-sign those construction loans for me, and within 6 months we were upside down on every single one of them. and I lost every dime we made and every dime my parents saved and their home and my home and our cars, and like I made my whole family homeless. That's what led me to comedy, because I was like, well, we got nothing here. You wanna come with me to LA and I'll tell jokes for a little while?
It's
and you know,
that's one way.
Yeah, they were just like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
no, exactly. But what do you do whenever you're on that trajectory and then you come to a screeching halt? It's going to be difficult. It doesn't matter which route you want to go.
It was the worst. You know, everything was so bad and I was in so much pain, but I felt like, you know, I just need to do something different. I need to get out of this. And I had, you know, a couple of opportunities that allowed me to, that even gave me the idea to get out there and try, you know, and so I did that for a few years. It was real fun, you know. I'm really happy I took the time to just give myself a break and do something creative.
From real estate
to jumping into comedy. In fact, many of the relationships I made in that time are still coming around and finding ways to creep back into my life now to create different opportunities. And so it's weird. It's just such a weird, it's such a big jump, right? Comedy to real estate to comedy to real estate. Like who does that, right? But I can see now all of that was leading to things that are in my life today, oddly enough.
Well, I think the universe is a very interesting way of putting things together. Sometimes, I mean, it looks like a collage, right? Different pictures of I want to give this a shot. I want to try this, and I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I've gotten into stuff that they have absolutely nothing in common. They make no sense. They don't go hand in hand, and somehow, some way down the road, they'll connect.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, it's pretty interesting. I'm at the point right now where a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, that if you looked at it, 3 years ago, like what the fuck, man? Like why are you spending so much time here and so much time here and so much time here, and now all of a sudden it's all coming together.
Yeah.
So I mean, it sounds like that's what happened. With your trajectory, the way that it worked, and I mean, you have a very contagious personality, man. You walk into a room and people just start smiling.
Thank you.
So I can only imagine how it was, and your ability to change the energy in that room whenever you were, when that was the whole point of it. Now it just happens organically.
Now it happens organically, and I'm a joyful guy. I love being happy. That's just the thing I want in life, right? I want to smile. I want the people around me to make me smile, or for me to make them smile, and that's all I focus on. I think the success and money and the company growing and scaling to what it is a byproduct of me just having fun. I legit have fun every single day. I have fun with everyone I work with. I come into this batch office and that's my family, you know what I mean? Like I run around from office to office to office, laughing and hugging everybody out there because I love them so much, and they love me. And so it's just like, that's what my whole life has become, is this one giant laugh and joyful experience. And for me, I just want to continue doing that. And I can see the benefits and the beauty that comes from it, but it's just, the simple thing is, I just want to be happy every day. That's all.
I love it, and it shows. It shows that you do have that, that feeling of enjoyment in everything that you do. Otherwise, it wouldn't transpire that way.
Yeah, I think so as well.
So I know you're big into inner development. Meditation, and there's a couple of other things that you do to kind of keep balancing your crazy life, because you do have a very busy life.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm very routine. If for any of your viewers out there who see me, they're like, hey, that guy is like always dressed the same. Yes, I am. I have 1,000 of these shirts, and I just don't put any energy or time into like needing to look different, right? So I dress the same, I eat the same, like I'm very structured in my day. I wake up at the same time every day. I do the same things in the morning, right? So I wake up, I drink my coffee the same way. I meditate for the same amount of time. I then go to the gym and, do that. I come back and I connect with my wife for a little while. And then I get ready and I'm out the door to the office. I'm from there from 11 till like 6:30 or 7 o'clock every single day. And the routine of that, I am like not interested in changing. I feel that if at least the morning, everything else after 11 a.m. can be anything it wants. But from the time I wake up to 11 o'clock, that's me. That's for me and no one else. And that's when I get in the time to meditate, to visualize, to exercise, to, just make sure that every aspect of me is firing off at like all cylinders. I think that we are in a culture of grind, hustle, don't sleep. You have to work 9 to 5, and then you have to come home and you have to work again on your dream from
right.
from 7 to 3, and okay, guys, no, it's that it doesn't have to be that hard. It really doesn't. If you are intentional about wanting something in your life, I think it starts in your mind and in your heart. Like if you are out and doing a job right now, like you're working a 9 to 5 and you're unhappy and you want something else, I would say you don't quit your job today, but what you should do is really start developing the inside what you want, right? The mental picture, and then from there, being just grateful for being in this country and having the capacity to dream and to want that. And from that space, from that inner peace comes items and things in your life that you won't be able to explain. Like opportunities come from a peaceful person. That's how it happens. Like you flower from the inside out. And we're doing it wrong if we're showing people that you've got to really like go against the grain and be this like non-sleeping crazy person that hustles 24/7 to get a good life. It's not true.
Yeah, I think we're enamored with the concept of hustle, almost like a badge on the shoulder, like hustle, and I get it. You can't have results without action. But there's also other ways to just create from a space of being and actually, I mean, I was talking on one of the previous episodes where we were talking about the state of flow and being in a conscious space of growth all the time, and I think it's a very, very hard concept to process, especially if, at least for me it was. Me coming from a background where I had to figure everything out and then, break down the walls with my hands and just, hustle through everything. The first time somebody told me, dude, slow down. I mean, figure out what this is, connect with this, and then this is just going to start, making sense, one, and then two, it's going to start panning out the way they want it to.
Absolutely.
Like, how the fuck is that possible? Like, if I'm not, spending, 18 hours awake working on my dream, like, why not? You know what I mean? How would that happen?
Yeah.
But I don't presume to understand it. I just understand that that's how it works now.
I don't know that we're done as even scientists understanding it, but I know that they're putting their finger on it, right? There's a lot of study on the field, right? What is the field? And what is the unified field out there? And what things does it control, right? Yeah. You don't see microwaves, but they are real.
They are there.
You don't see radio waves, but you turn on your radio and you hear music, right? You can't see the field, but it's acting on you. The gravity is a part of that. Magnetism is a part of that. All of these forces that are invisible but are acting upon us are a part of it. And all you do is either find ways to connect to it or disconnect from it, right? And I think we connect to it when we're in our peace, when we're in our joy, when we're grateful, when we have a clear vision, when we have in our hearts that we only want to help and not hurt. When you are in a state of cooperative alignment, the things that happen and come to you are incredible. But you have to check your heart, right? Because if you can meditate, but if what you're focusing on is on the downfall of your brother, or for somebody not to do well, or for you to be better than somebody, like, you really have to check your heart and make sure that you're not coming from a place of scarcity, that you're not coming from a place where
fear
or ego, right? And because that's possible, and it's quite normal to fall into that as well. You just have to really be self-aware and kind of uncover your motives, right? And once you start to peel back the layers, you start to say, oh, wow, my motive here wasn't really good, is it? Like, I might be doing this because I'm trying to stroke my ego. Okay, well, let me peel that back. And then, is that desire still there? Oh, it's not there anymore? Okay, then this is probably something that's not something I should focus on, right? So really getting to a point of, like, investigating your heart, investigating your motives, and then truly trying to find a way to tap into this, this world of force that is around us, I think, is the key to doing anything special.
I love it. I think, I mean, you're hitting it in the head with the context of awareness, just being aware from where you're operating and where your decisions are coming from. And if it's really you, a lot of the notions that we adopt are just borrowed notions from, the environment, from other people that we love. It was their idea, and then we just kind of adopted and became our idea after a while. And then the tendency is to protect those borrowed ideas for so long that we assume they're ours.
Well, the thing is that as human beings, they served us for so long, right? Like, it was jealousy, being greedy, or even being falsely even falsely nice to somebody to gain a benefit. Like, all of this was things that we did on a societal level, when we were still evolving into the creatures we are today, right? You got to understand that the human brain is still evolving. It has been evolving and is still evolving, right? The survival characteristics that we tend to, like, look at, like, why am I being covetous? Why am I hoarding? Why am I acting like a victim? Why am I holding a grudge? Why do I have greed? Like, where is this coming from? It's not, and again, look, some people will say, well, no, this is the story of creation, and this is, like, good and evil. But let's look at it in terms of biology, okay? From the stance of biology, these things were all important for us to help our survival at the time, right? But we don't need that stuff anymore, right? We can transcend that. We can get big. If you look at Maslow's pyramid, right? If you self-actualization is the top of the pyramid, and what does that mean? All of your needs have been met. Once your needs can be met, once you have no desire for food, clothing, shelter, companionship, belonging, mate, like, once all of these things, money, once you have that stuff, a human being can actualize, because they start to be able to separate the survival things to, like, what is above that. Right? I think that's the space that creativity lives in.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no saber tooth chasing you anymore.
No,
and
no.
it's
today it's an iPhone.
Today's the iPhone. Yeah,
it's a text message chasing us around, right? That's the danger we hold.
It's a lack of attention. Yeah.
Yep. If you look at it, all addiction, all like, when we as human beings get addicted to a drug, right? What is the addiction to the drug? No, the addiction is to dopamine. We take the drug activates the chemical neurotransmitters in our brain, which release dopamine, which creates the feeling, right? So we're really dopamine addicts, right? That's why people who are like gym rats, they go to the gym and they release those endorphins. Those endorphins are the body's natural opiates. But what is that? It's just dopamine. Again, dopamine, right? At the end of the day, it's all dopamine, right?
Biochemical reaction.
Every time we make a post on social media, and I've done this, and I'm sure you've done this, and other people do this, it's like, how many likes did I get? And if somebody likes our post, or you get a new follower, or whatever that is, it's like, oh, it's a little dopamine hit, right? We're rewiring our brains. We are changing the chemistry and the biology of our minds with our attachment to technology. The result of this, I don't know what it looks like, but you can trust that we've evolved from being chased by saber-toothed tigers to being in a point where we were all sitting in desks getting fat, to now where we're hyper connected, right? And we're getting these false these false bursts of dopamine because we feel like that's where we gain our value, or that's where we gain our pleasure. And so I'm interested to see how humanity kind of
is going to pan out for the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's going to be fine. I mean, we're the most resilient things out there, right? So we will figure out, a new section of the brain will develop, right? It's just how it works.
Yeah,
it's just what happens.
Natural evolution.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it. I mean, in terms of it comes down to validation, at least as one of the triggers.
Yeah. Yeah, so we still get it, right? Yeah. Like when I'm speaking in front of a crowd and I can resonate with them and I feel like I'm really saying something that's impactful and is going to change or help someone's life. I get a dopamine hit from it.
Yeah.
I get a hit. I get a high, right? Pace talks about a helper's high, right? He gets a helper's high when he's out there doing ride-alongs and showing people how to do subject 2, right? He gets a helper's high from that. That's changing the chemistry of his brain, right? There's no doubt that's what's happening right now. Again, it's nothing. That's not negative. It's just these are the results. But I think that the more that we as people do things to benefit each other, that also benefit us, I think that's not going to degrade us moving forward. I think that's going to create some fantastic opportunities for us as a species. So I'm interested to see how it goes.
And that's also a very hard. I mean, it's so hard to understand until you live it.
Yes.
And and again, I'm always speaking for myself. But to me, it wasn't something that I was that I was seeing as a natural way of doing things or doing business. But when you're in it, it's impossible not to see the benefits and like the super cool experiences that happen, the growth that happens, and how everybody just elevates each other as you're helping out.
Yeah.
And if it's coming from from a helper's high or whatever, at the end of the day, the point is that collaboration and contribution do make me feel better.
Yeah.
Every time I feel like I walk away from somebody and I feel like I've dropped something good that person can use to improve their life and their future somehow, it makes me feel good and makes me want to do it again.
Yeah, it's awesome, right?
At a bigger level, yeah.
It's so great.
Right.
It's so great that we have that built into our natural hardwire. But it takes time figuring out that's a thing,
to dig it out. Why? Because I was so stuck on survival and that mentality of lack. Like, all right, cool, I have an idea, I can't tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
No, somebody's gonna steal it. It's just the way that I was raised. And again, you mentioned it, and I think you hit it right on the head. Is those thoughts served me well for a long, long time.
Yes.
But then you come to a point where they're irrelevant now. You have to evolve, just like your life is evolving, along with you.
And guys that are watching, you have to take note of your friend circles, right? The people that you're around.
Yeah.
If the people you're around put you in that state of feeling like you need to be inauthentic to protect a benefit, if they make you feel jealousy, if they make you feel anger, if they make you feel lack, if they make you feel protecting, if they make you feel anything that's constricting, you have to take heed to that. That's your warning. That's the internal GPS telling you are in the wrong direction, my friend.
Yeah.
You are traveling the wrong way.
Yeah, it's either look at yourself and see where that where that thought is coming and that emotion and energy is coming from.
Yep.
If it's emerging from you or if it's coming from that group.
Correct.
And if it's the group, get the fuck out. Do something else.
Yeah. If it's you, then change it.
Change it.
You know. I'm not saying like lose all your friends, but again, if it's typically always it's always you, right?
Yeah.
One thing that I had this conversation with my niece yesterday. She was telling me about her crazy Spanish teacher and all the things that she does wrong. And I looked at my niece and I said, "Can I tell you something?" She said, "What?" I said, "It's always your fault.
Yeah.
It's always my fault. It's always your fault. It's always your fault. Whenever something's out there, it's your fault. It's either how you perceive it, which is creating the disconnection, right? Or how you're reacting to it.
Right.
It's always you, though. You are in control. Like, look, some guy out in the world doing crazy stuff doesn't affect me until I label that as affecting me, right? Like, none of this matters until I say it matters for me. So if you're feeling away or something's not going your way, you have to see where you are the cause of that situation being what it is.
Right.
It's always your fault.
Exactly. If you give something a shot and you fail, it's your fault. If you give something a shot and you succeed, it's also your fault. It's how you see it, how you interpret it. One thing that gets me is I'm here because of so and so, or I'm here because of this and that, and it's, I think, putting that blame on something that's outside of you makes you that much weaker.
Yeah, it's just victim thinking,
right?
right?
Yeah, exactly. You're just releasing your ability and your power, your personal power to do anything about anything.
Right.
So
if someone else has the ability to, if you're labeling anything anybody's fault, then you're a slave to that fault, to that situation. That's what you are. That's what you've made yourself, right? So you can free yourself at any time. The shackles are in your brain.
I love that. So that's a huge bomb right there. Shackles are in your brain. So as far as meditation and I want to tap into that a little more before we because I have a question regarding strategy in business that I don't want to close off without asking, but I'm also curious on your meditation routine. What do you do? Do you stick to something that's kind of like ritual, or do you mix it up? Or?
So great question, man. So I really began my practice with guided meditations for the longest time, and I still go back to them every once in a while. Meditating is hard for it being literally doing nothing. Doing nothing is one of the hardest things in the world to do, right? Yeah. It's like really hard. And so I spent a long time tethered to guided meditations because they were easier for me to follow, right? I could get a clear understanding, a clear picture of what I was to do listening to someone's instructions. And I think that if you're one of those people that's like, oh, I've tried meditating and it's just not for me, that's probably what you need, is probably to gear towards more guided stuff for now. So that was really my where I was sitting for a while was 30-minute, 45-minute guided meditations. There's an app that I love. It's called Insight Timer. It's in the App Store. It's free. And there's thousands and thousands of guided meditations in that app. And I would just pick one. If I was like, okay, today I'm feeling stressed out, and so I'll find a guided meditation on stress relief and body relaxation. If I felt, I was lacking something, I would do a meditation on abundance or gratitude. I would always tailor the guided meditation to my, disposition of the day. Now I do a lot more silent, just breath work, and now it's different. I'm really starting to feel more space in that realm, and because I've created more space in that realm, I'm not so bored. I'm now like on a quest looking for something. You know, I feel like an adventurous explorer in my meditation.
Close your eyes when you're meditating.
It's fun. I never know what I'm going to uncover.
And silent meditation is a lot harder than listening.
It's
to,
different.
To
I think,
else,
you know, I don't think anything's easy or hard, but it's different, right? However, I could say that guided meditations to begin with they're going to be probably something that you can stick to longer.
All right, so for anybody who thinks that meditation doesn't work, this is coming from a guy that still produces 100 deals a month. It's crushing it in his industry, top producer, top performer, super, versatile background. And one of the core things that you look at is look at, within, work on yourself, and meditation-wise.
Yes.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. So
thank you.
So moving on to the technicalities of business.
Yeah.
So it's an entrepreneurship podcast. So we talk about not necessarily just real estate, but entrepreneurship in general. As you were coming up, was most of that work being done by you, or were you working? Are you always used to have been working in teams?
No, I was a solo dude for the longest time.
Okay.
Yeah, I was really frightened of a partnership, honestly. Like, my only partner has ever been my sister. We've been business partners since the beginning, but easy for us to do that because we were like best friends, right? And so her and I understand each other. She knows my quirks, I know hers. And so that was an easy partnership to have. But I'm a quirky dude, right? And so it was really tough for me to get in, to be able to be in partnerships before, because I've been let down so much, and I've let people down so much, right? It's just part of the nature, man. It's just like it never worked for me until this time. It was always the wrong things, but I think I was always coming into these partnerships trying to benefit from somebody before I was willing to come and benefit them. I didn't know what Josiah and Hunter were going to be able to do. Because I was coming to the table with the deals, and the deals are the hard. Was what I thought what the hard thing was, right? So I wasn't quite sure what was going to transpire, but then what ended up transpiring was like so much more, that they were able to blow the business up because of me starting by giving. My sister and I brought $1 million to the table to close deals for Keyglee before Keyglee had any money. So we funded the company to begin with, and we brought deals to the company, and this was to like Josiah, who at the time was 23, and Hunter, who was 19.
Super young dudes, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, just like kids, right? To my like 37 or whatever at the time, right? So that was hard. But that was me saying, okay, I'm gonna.
Of trust.
Yeah, well, I'm bringing what I can to the table to benefit all. And then it just so happens that those two dudes are the most hardworking and intelligent and amazing guys ever, and they were able to take the tools and they were able to take the deals and the little benefits that we did bring to the table and explode them, right? But it started with us coming to the table with like, here's a benefit to you where I didn't charge interest. We didn't charge Keyglee interest to use the money for a year. We just did it, right? It was like, we're bringing this to the table. We're bringing value to the table.
Yeah, this is what we have in terms of value.
Yeah, and we're not going to take any advantage from it. We're going to do this as like a family would.
So that's how you stepped it up. I mean, you came in and really, guns blazing, because it's a big commitment, right? Both financially and then professionally, because you're used to doing something on your by yourself, and it's hard. It can be hard to release full control.
Dude, they were telling me I had to come to an office, and I was not used to that, right? I was.
The O word?
Well, yeah, because I was like, I used to work out of my guest house, right? And so, if I chose to brush my teeth that day, it was my choice.
Right.
Like, whatever it was my thing. Like, if I didn't want to get out of my pajamas, I didn't have to get out of my pajamas, right? I was like, I'm just working in my home, working from my house. And then, as Keyglee started to grow and
Pajamas were optional.
yeah, well, they were like, hey, we're going to rent an office and it would be really cool if you were there, to like work with some of our team and help them, understand your processes and the things that you do to be successful. And, I was resistant to it. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to an office. And then, my mind had to change on that. And now it's like, I can't wait to get to the office. And I love my team so much. And I love seeing them every day. It's just like, you just change, right? Like you realize that a lot of the things that you like or dislike are just preferences.
They are. And I think a lot of times it's also just lack of awareness. I mean, like, I don't know what I don't know. So I don't know what I don't like.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I used to think that I hated coming into an office.
Yeah.
And working from an office. That was my thought.
And now you're here every day.
I'm here every day.
Yeah.
And I love it. And it's optional. It's I don't have to do it.
Right.
Nobody's forcing me to do it. But I enjoy the time, the productivity and everything. It's just I did not know that I could work in an office environment until I kind of wrap my head around it first.
Sure.
And then it just became something that I liked.
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you think? That's how you stepped it up a notch, and how you became or started to become, Keyglee and the company that you guys are right now. How do you keep it together? What do you think makes that, one, that leadership, and then two, that partnership work so well?
We really give each other space to do what we need to do, right? The one thing that we don't do is, like, I trust that my partners are always doing everything that they can that's for the best of the company. I would never walk into a room and be like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? And they wouldn't do that to me, right? They all know that whatever we are doing is for the betterment of all and for the betterment of the company. And of course we check in with each other and let each other know, hey, this is where, like, Pace and Jamil do America, right? It's not a Keyglee thing. In fact, Pace and Jamil are competitors, right? Yeah. And doing America takes me out of the office, right? So, of course, my partners want to know, okay, what's the direction, right? Like, you're away a little bit, what's the direction here? And there is a direction, right? We gain a lot, even though we're giving so much, that giving has brought us so much as well, right? We gain from it. Inadvertently, not looking for it, but we gain, right? The company profile is growing. People who are in markets where we're operating know us now and do deals with us.
Start sending stuff.
Yeah, it's just like it's like one thing leads to the other, but it's not like that wasn't the initial, or it's not the like reason for it, but it's a beautiful byproduct of it, right? So
love reciprocity, man.
100%.
You're doing good, you get good back.
And we get good back, and so it's beneficial to the company, right? Your viewers might not know this, but Keyglee's about to franchise, right? And so I don't know that process, right? Josiah and Hunter are more familiar with it because they've taken the time to learn more and do more research and get involved, right? And so they're really driving the boat with that happening. And so I think we just give each other the space to work on the things that we want to work on, and then once we've kind of got something fleshed out, we bring it back to the group and say, this is what I've been doing.
Check this out.
Yeah, and they're like, and then we're all like, yeah, this is great, or like, oh yeah, that's cool, right? But either way, it's still like what you like, do what you got to do. That doesn't mean that like the company is not being led by the strong leaders. We have, that company runs like a well-oiled machine. Every department has a team lead, and those team leads report to a partner once a week. And so these, like the structure of the business and how it's run, it's just, it's so efficient. And every time we identify an inefficiency, we correct it. We figure out how to make it better. Of course, we're continuously doing that because it's new, right? But that's the process. We give each other space to grow and learn, and then we adjust as we need to. But it's like there's just so much love and trust between the partners that we all have. We all know that we have the company at our heart, what's best for the company in our heart all the time. And then we're always living and working through that.
Well, I mean, I think the key word there is trust, because you don't have to, whenever you're operating at that level and you have that connection with your partners, I think that you don't have the necessity to over communicate.
Yeah.
Every single little step in that, I mean, it almost becomes like micromanaging, right?
Yeah, we don't, that's so far from what we do.
Yeah.
Like, we meet once a week and fill each other in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you do, I mean, you have that big platform of trust.
100%.
That, makes everything, it's like the glue, man.
It 100% is. It totally is. That, of course, none of that would be possible without the great team leaders that we have, but it's great, man. We're paving the way to something bigger and better every day.
I love it, man. I love it. And yeah, definitely it's amazing to see how everything, from square one has kind of shaped your path and is colliding all at the same time. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think I'm assuming here, but I think that having background and connecting with people through comedy and having that side of you just kind of flourish during that time is doing leaps and bounds right now with, for example, Pace and Jamil Do America. I mean,
yeah.
That's an amazing just project that kind of, if I'm correct about this, just it kind of got kicked off as a hey, let's try this, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
We were really just like, hey, this is
changing lives.
Yeah,
bro.
it's legit changing lives,
Yeah.
right? Pace and I were looking at each other and looking at the things that we've done for each other in our lives, and we've seen this as two competitors, how much we've added to each other, right? And so that birthed just the concept of what we're talking about when we get out there.
For those who don't know what Pace and Jamil Do America is, can you give us just a quick summary?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pace Morby and I are traveling around the United States, and we are talking about how collaborating with your competition is really the most advantageous way to grow and build your business, right? And so we go into different RIAs, we go to different networking events, and we engage with the groups that are there to really find out what they're missing, and then find people in the room at that time that can help them fill that gap. And you'd be so surprised, man. Like, we were in Orlando last week, and it was shocking just how beautiful people will be with each other if they're given the permission to do that. Mm-hmm. There was a girl who stood up, Maritza, I believe was her name, and she said she's really great at lead gen. She crushes it at lead gen. She can fill an appointment schedule all day, but she can't close the door. Like, she's just not good at converting those leads into contracts. Conversion is her problem, right? And so in our talks, we talked to people in the audience, and how many rock star salespeople were in the audience that were just like awesome at converting and closing leads, but had no idea how to fill their calendars. And we had all these hands go up, and then people were getting up, walking to her and giving them her, like, connections were being made in the room right there, right? So I can tell you that she walked out of there with 4 or 5 different badass closers who she could test then out, probably who's probably being tested this week to see, who gels with her and who's gonna vibe and who, whether that can work or not. But that wouldn't have even been possible without her having the freedom to share her vulnerability, right? Because that's what it takes to collaborate.
Right.
Being vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable to tell people what you're not good at. Because otherwise we just run around the world pretending like we're good at everything.
Yeah, as entrepreneurs, I think we wanna wear that armor around everything that we do. But the reality of it is that we all suck, man. I mean, there may be 1 or 2 things that we're really good at, but everything else, the rest is gonna be average, and there's gonna be some real shitty stuff.
Of course.
And it's okay. I mean, we all have our strengths, and tapping and partnering up and collaborating with different people to compensate for those areas doesn't only make us better, but it will make their world better as well.
Absolutely. It's one of our key company values at Keyglee is ant life. We call it ant life, right? We look at it like this. If you look at ants, they're always adding to each other. They're always like, if they need to get from here to there, they will build a ant ladder.
Right.
Where they will be the platform for other ants to walk on, right? That's cooperation. That's collaborating at the deepest level, right? And it's instinctual to them. They know that the survival of the ant depends on the cooperation of the ants.
Right.
Right? That's how it works. But then you look at crabs. You know, crabs in a bucket pull each other down, and we'll never let a crab. You don't even have to put a lid on a bucket of crabs because they will just always be pulling. One can almost escape, and then another one will just pull them back in, right? And so we always we joke about it, like, are you being an ant or are you being a crab, right? You wanna live ant life, right? We are trying to cooperate. We're trying to build on each other, not pull each other down and create problems.
Man, I love it. I love it. So I want to pick your brain on sales.
Okay.
I mean, you're really good on sales. You're good on closing and creating deals. Do you have I don't know, 3-4 pointers that you can give to salespeople out there?
I think the key is solving problems. I think sales is interesting that it's got this idea that it's manipulative. Right? When you sell something, you're manipulating somebody from where they wouldn't buy it to where they'd buy it, and even the whole process is skeezy.
Yeah, traditional.
When you look at it like that, I think that's all bullshit. Like, that's not real. Sales should be, where's your deficiency? Where's your problem? And how can I provide you the product or the service that's going to help your problem? That's it. And if you can just always focus on needs, problem solving, then you're not selling anymore. Then there's just a price to the solution, and it doesn't have to be a sale anymore. It's just like it's a given. Like, yeah, of course the price to this solution that I need to solve my problem is going to be X dollars, and I just so happen to pay you for that. Right. So then you're not selling me now. You're solving my problems, and I think that if you go into these situations with that as the key, then you'll always have more success, right? I think consistency is another thing. We tend to give up early, right? We tend to decide, nobody's gonna sell their house today. But like, we make all of the people that join our ACT team in Keyglee read this book called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt.
What's it called?
Fanatical Prospecting. Amazing book. And it literally is being fanatical with your prospecting. It's like, you just have to keep doing it. There is no shortcut to consistency, right? So solving problems, being consistent, and then know your limitations. Know the things you're good at. And if you're not skilled in something, then figure out how to add those skills to your repertoire. Be aware. Yeah. Be aware of the things you're good at and the things that you're not good at. And then hone in on the things that you're good at, and the things that you're not, move to someone who's good at it, right? Move that task off to somebody where it's better suited, right? Self-awareness, consistency, and problem solving. I think that if anybody could take those 3 things and really dive into that being the key concept of their sales strategy, would go from being like average to world's best.
Yeah. I love it. Simple concepts, and a lot of times it's just forgotten.
Forgotten, or it's like we are always looking for the gimmick, right?
Right.
Like, we want the magic script.
Yeah, magic script, or either that, or we walk into something or a sale, particularly with assumptions.
Yes.
Like, without taking the time to discover what the real problem is.
Right.
And I mean, I think that's a deal breaker right out of the gate.
And I think to add a fourth, just to that, is just listening. The best sellers I know say the least, right? Because they listen. They're really, really listening. We don't do that anymore. We're always just waiting for our turns to talk.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I love it, man. I love it. So we've covered a lot. I mean, it's an amazing set of skills that you have. One, it's an amazing experience that you've had as an entrepreneur. I mean, you've seen highs, you've seen lows, and everything in between. If you were to go back and talk to your 17-year-old self, you ran into that kid, on the street, and you had 60 seconds to talk to him, what would you tell that kid?
You're exactly where you're supposed to be, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
Keep going forward.
Yeah,
don't change a thing.
No.
Yeah, I love it.
No.
It's the first time I get that.
No, not change a thing, bro. I've only given you the highlight reel. There's so many other highs and lows that are in those pieces that I tend not to talk about. The car accident and other things. Like there was things in there that were still terrible that I don't dwell on, right? I could tell myself, hey, you're going to get into a car crash and pass away and get paralyzed, and that's going to be terrible. And like that happened to me, right? But I don't talk about it a lot. But I would never tell myself, don't drive that car that day, because I needed that. Everything good and bad that's happened to me has been necessary. I would look back at my 17-year-old self and say, bro, it's going to be a ride. You're in for a ride, man. You're in for a ride. That's it.
Man,
That's all I would say is that you're in for a ride and enjoy it. Smile more, little man.
I love it.
That's it. I wouldn't want there to be a single thing different.
I think you're one of the few people that I know that live life through the principle of joy. At least from what I can see. And that's what I look for in every single experience and every single relationship and everything, single thing that I want to venture into. Mm-hmm. And it's refreshing to see that in somebody else and the variation of experiences that it can bring to you without having to worry about the little details of what controlling every single aspect of the outcomes and stuff. So it's all I care about, man. It's all I want. I just want to have more. And again, I know that's not always going to be joy. Like there's going to be pain. I'm gonna experience pain, right? Everything changes. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same, right? That's a universal truth. This desk won't be here in some time. Your hair won't be so perfect in some time, right? Like, I will get fatter. These things are going to happen, right? But like, I'm here. I'm happy. Mind blown, man. Mind blown. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the golden nuggets, man. It's we've had an amazing conversation. If somebody wants to find you, where do they go to?
I'm most active on Instagram, so find me at JDAMJI, so at JDamji. On Facebook, it's just my full name, Jamil Damji. Find me on social media, send me a DM. I respond. It takes me a while, so don't get upset at me.
Busy guy.
But send me a message, talk to me. I love connecting with people. I love hearing your stories. I love hearing how things that I say are impactful. And I even love it when you think I'm full of shit. Just tell me what your heart is.
All right, man. Well, I love you.
I love you too, bro.
Keep doing dope shit, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
There you guys have it. So, CEO Pulse Podcast, the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. This is Jamil Damji dropping fucking golden nuggets here.